Welcome back to Alberta Live. I'm your host, Walter Schwabe, and I'm here with Doug Horner. Doug, let's talk restorative justice. The Solicitor General just cut the programming funding for that. What's your stance on it?
Well, actually, Frank and I have had, Minister Oberle and I have had discussions about that. Restorative justice is something that he does support, and he would like to see it come back. So they tried to make it so that the Safe Communities dollars would be available to those groups. Because if the economy, the thinking at the time, remember going back to the budget of earlier this spring, the thinking, as I understand it, was that as the economy would improve, we would try to put the dollars back into that. His problem would be that it's either, boots on the streets or the programs that are out there. He had to make a choice. It's a tough choice. And this comes back to making decisions on dollars versus making decisions on value. I'm quite confident that if the minister had the opportunity, he'd probably bring that program back.
So, in terms of making different decisions differently, let's switch gears to economic development quickly. Okay, and we know, and it's been said recently, and of course the Premier was up north in Fort McMurray here just a day or two ago. We know that the oil sands is a major portion of our economic strength.
Canada.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Okay, so then let's think about the infrastructure issue there, right? We've got this tiny little highway leading up to this, okay? Why haven't we twinned that thing earlier? Why haven't we put infrastructure in place to help this place grow? I mean, I've never met the mayor from Fort McMurray, but I don't think I want that job either, right? Okay, it's a difficult position to be in.
It's very difficult.
So, in your government, what are we going to do differently?
Well, and again, it comes back to the changing the way we make decisions around dollars and dogma. So you have a highway that is a critical need in terms of moving people back and forth. Highway 63 is on the road to being twinned. It should be fast-tracked. We should twin it. We should also look at a highway between Peace River and Fort McMurray, and maybe we look at something around a toll road or a P3 there, because that's an industry-type highway. But it further connects the north and connects the dots, if you will, around the industry. And it comes back again, if you're going to make decisions about investment and building the future of the province, then you have to be prepared to say, you know what, we may have to amortize this particular capital piece out over 5-10 years. We may have to look at, instead of paying $1.5 billion cash for an asset that's going to last 40 years, we might want to take some of that and amortize it over 20 years, because Albertans of tomorrow will be using that facility as well. That's the kind of business decision we should be talking about when we talk about financial responsibility, not fiscal restraint.
Bringing it back a little bit closer to home for me, living out here in Strathcona County.
Yep.
I know that you're aware of one of the biggest issues out here in this region is not only our local hospital and that kind of thing, but also the power lines, right? Okay, so Rick Orman comes out and says, yeah, I'm all for burying the lines. Now, you've come out and said that you're in support of an international RFP.
Yep.
Tell us more about what that means and how that's going to help Strathcona.
Well, if people have to take this thing into the context of what we have developed in Alberta over the years. The regulated system of transmission and distribution allowed a monopoly for a few players within the province to be the builders of the transmission distribution systems. We built that over 60 years ago. We started this process where we wanted to have power in all of the communities, which was a good thing. So we decided we would set that in a regulated system where we guaranteed that company an X amount of return. Bill 50 actually opens the door for us to do requests for proposal outside of those two companies. I think it would be prudent for us, before we made a decision as to whether you're going to do X, Y, or Z, that we get a company who has actually done the business of burying cables, who's actually worked internationally in the geography that is similar to ours, who actually understands what it means to bury the cable, and especially one of 20 amps or the size of that, the capacity of that cable. And let's find out for sure what the number is and the technical feasibility of it, because you and I both know. I've heard numbers 25 million more. I've heard numbers 600 million more.
Right.
I've heard technically feasible, never been done. I've heard yes, it's been done, can be done as long as you do X, these things. Well, let's get the right answers. Leadership's about making decisions based on good information, not making decisions just because it sounds good. I think we need to get the RFP about burying that line, because if it's doable, let's do it.
I got one more question for you before we wrap up, because I know you got a whole.
Oh, by the way, the hospital, we should finish phase 2 sooner than later.
Hey, absolutely.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Okay, so what's your plan for the pine beetle? Because I just read in the Calgary Herald today, you know, how the pine, and I didn't make this connection before. Of course, I'm not a biologist or an expert in this anyways, but you know, the pine beetle eats the trees, the pines, right? Kills them dead. Then they are much more likely to catch fire in a forest fire and burn hotter and all this kind of stuff, which then, of course, shuts down the oil patch in any region where that happens, right? Which then hits our major economic engine, right? Yeah, there he is, right?
Yeah, they're not very pretty.
No, they're not. They're damaging little buggers, aren't they? So, what's your plan for the pine beetle and how we deal with this issue?
You know, we've been moving in a number of areas. One of them is, what do you do with the wood after the pine beetle's already damaged it? In fact, in ANC and Whitecourt, one of the issues was when you look at damaged wood from the pine beetle, there's actually a bluing that happens in the bark or under the bark, which makes it very difficult for them to get the white color they want in the newsprint. So we actually used the Alberta Research Council and then Alberta Innovates to create some sensors at ANC that would allow them to put just the right amount of bleach when that type of wood came through. So they're now utilizing some of that mountain pine beetle wood, even though it has that bluing damage to it. Another one is we're shipping furniture that's been made out of pine beetle damaged wood to Asia, to those new markets. It's about opening up those new markets. We're also utilizing some biosciences to see if we can actually exterminate the little buggers, to use your term. And I think there's opportunities there for us as well. It is about finding the science that will do the job for us, and we need to invest in that science and partner with the federal government on where we can go with that. There's also forest management specialists that have been working in this area for some time. We have to keep the fight up. We can't just let it go. And we saw what happened in British Columbia when that was allowed to happen, and it just exploded. I think they're here for a fairly long period of time if we don't do something. And let's put the dollars in play to actually find the science to solve the problem.
So if more people want to find out more about your policies and about what you're talking about day to day, where can they go?
They can go to hornerforalberta.ca, or they can go to my Facebook page, and I would enjoy if you went there. We've released a lot of our policy already. There's more policy coming out in agriculture and financial responsibility, economic development that I think you'll like.
Well, good.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning into Alberta Live today. I'm your host, Walter Schwabe, my guest, Doug Horner. We're going to post these episodes up on YouTube, and I'm going to offer them up to you, Doug, if you want to post them up and put them on your YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Doug, he just told you where to go and how to reach him and ask those questions on his website. Thank you again for supporting fusedlogicTV. Stay tuned until the next show comes up right after we're done here. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Crichton with fusedlogicTV. Hope you enjoyed the program that you just watched. Coming soon through fusedlogicTV, a very special offer for those of you who produce corporate videos. A whole new way of doing business at a price you won't believe. It's wild, it's inexpensive, and it's video at the speed of business.